Yay, fantastic. So welcome to Thriving Through Midlife, our How to Write Your Story edition. So writing your story in later life can be a powerful and transformative experience. It's not just about recording the events in your life for prosperity, but more about reflecting on your experiences, gaining new insights, and sharing your wisdom with others. That's why I'm really glad to have this conversation with these three wonderful women, all of which have got lots of experience in writing, also authors and writing coaches. So I'd like to introduce Carolyn Tate, Joanne Fedler, Rowena Robinson. Hello, and most of you know Joanne and Rowena, you've seen them a lot. So we're really happy to have Carolyn in the community. So thank you. This is your first time here. We really thank you and we're glad you're here with us. So I'm going to kick straight in and I will start with Carolyn because you were the first in. So the first question will be, can you share your journey with writing? Where did it all begin for you?
Thank you for the invitation, Faith, to be here tonight. My writing journey began in my early 40s, and I was in marketing for many years, and I took myself on my own 4-day writer's retreat, and I thought I'll just have a go at writing a marketing book. And 4 days later of being on this retreat, I came out with 30,000 words. And I can remember just thinking, this is it. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So that's how it began. And then 6 books later, and I'm currently writing my next book, which is a novel. So yeah, it began, I guess, by, I think, what I call a grand gesture to myself, a gesture to writing, a kind of treating myself and treating my writing with 4 days of reverence in nature in a little cottage. And I think that, yeah, it wasn't just a little bit of writing in between the cracks. It started with this really grand gesture and it just went from there. We can't hear you,
Let's go
Faith.
to Rowena. Rowena, you're up next.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Faith, and thanks for including me in this wonderful company. Yeah, my my journey, I guess it started even when I was at school. I always felt like I had something to say, and the teachers around me knew I had something to say because they were always telling me to shut up. And so lots of writing in those little diaries that had keys and locks, and you hide them under your bed, and then I had some trauma in my life, and I was encouraged to journal as a way of mitigating that trauma. So that was, it was literally, it was confirmation that I knew that I could write something, but I never had the confidence to think of myself as a writer. And then I was invited by a woman, Liz Mollinar. She used to be a casting agent, and she was the one that started the Belvoir Theatre. And I was encouraged through a friendship with her and a connection with her to be a part of a group authorship. We together, there were a group of us that wrote a book called Breaking the Silence, and it was about childhood trauma and all that sort of stuff. And we contributed our bits and pieces, but we also coordinated other people's stories. And once again, there was that little confirmation that I could write. And the final key in the puzzle for me, if you wish, was that I did I found the courage, I struck up the courage to enroll myself in a course at the Writer's Studio. And it was just a little course, a little 4-week course. It was called Unlocking Creativity. And the very first thing and the pivotal thing that I think is probably more important than anything else I learned from those people. And I'm still working with those people, but the pivotal thing that I learned from them was that if I was going to write anything, I had to actually refer to myself as a writer, you know, even though I didn't feel like I was, you know, like I don't know enough, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough tools, I don't. And they just said, look, if you're going to be a writer, you've got to own it now. And so I did, and that was the start for me. I actually now do tutoring for that that establishment, the writers studio, and I've written some short stories for them, and I'm currently still working on my my memoir. I actually got to the end of it. I got to a place where I could actually write the end, but of course it needs a lot of editing. And I just want to say, I have told you this before, Joe, but I'm going to tell you again. You were pivotal in my journey, because I picked up your book quite by accident, the one where you wrote about coming from South Africa to here. And I read that book. I could not put it down. I read that book, and every word in that book spoke to me. And this woman is writing my story. Yes, she's white. Yes, she's Jewish. Yes, she comes from another country, but you were writing my story. And you know, I was just so in awe of the fact that you'd written this book and you'd got it out there. And I held on to that. And so thank you. Thank you so much for that experience. That's me.
Perfect segue to Joe. Over to you, Joe.
Yeah.
Thank you. Rowena, thank you. That's such a beautiful affirmation. Honestly, I'm so grateful to hear that. Especially, and I think the point that you make about somebody's life that might be so different from yours, somehow impacting on yours or speaking into your story, is really if there was one thing that I would, want to just leave people here with, is that the idea that your story is not special enough, or doesn't speak enough into the universal story, is that the personal details of our lives are exactly that which makes the connection with other people. So thank you for that, Rowena. My journey started when I was little. I began writing when I was 6. I grew up with a sister who was deaf. And I was my older sister. She couldn't speak, and I was the only one who could understand her. And I used to interpret for my parents until she had enough speech and hearing therapy to be able to speak out. I could understand her. And I suppose growing up in apartheid South Africa, growing up with a sister who couldn't make herself heard, I think I always knew from a very young age that having a voice is a fundamental aspect of being a person, of being visible. And so I went through school writing. I kept journals from, a young age. I think I've got my journals from when I was like 14, 16. I read Anne Frank's diaries. You know how people still read those diaries of a 14-year-old girl to this day, and somehow the things that occupied her are still relevant for us today. And I then went and I studied law because I felt like I wanted to help make a difference. But law is actually just a lot of stories that don't have a place, especially if they don't fit into a certain kind of framework. And I really found that many of women's stories, many of the lives that women lead, don't fit into the story, the narrative that law has. And so though I became an expert in domestic violence and sexual violence, and sat on commissions and drafted legislation, I very soon found the limits of working in that area, and emigrated to Australia when I had 2 small children. They were 2 and 4, and I didn't want to requalify as a lawyer, and really just carried on, try to finish a book that I had begun in my early 20s. I had actually, interesting, like Carolyn said, giving that grand gesture to yourself. I applied for at a women's writers colony in America when I had no right to call myself a writer, but I got accepted, and I spent 8 weeks there working on this draft of my first novel, which eventually came out many, many years later. And since then, I've been writing consistently, and I've got my 15th book is coming out at the end of this year. But the more important thing is that I started my own publishing house, and I mentor other women. I run writing retreats, and I try to publish as many women's stories as I possibly can. And there is nothing that gives me greater pleasure than seeing a woman hold her story in her hands. And I've been at the birth of a couple of those, and I've got another one coming out this year, a woman I've been working with for 7 years, who's writing about some, this being a survivor of incest. It's taken us 7 years, but yeah, I mean, it's a continual learning journey, and it's my greatest passion is to help women write their stories. So thank you for inviting me here, Faith.
Beautiful. And I love how everything's segueing, because our next question is about women's stories. You know, it's about, the question is, which female or women author most inspire you and why? And for me, you know, women's stories are always hold a special place because I'm a woman and I really relate. And it's hearing those stories that really reflect my life in the same way that Rowena talked about Joe's story means a lot, you know. So I've just wondered, let's go to Carolyn. Which female authors, there might be more than one, really inspired you?
So mine changes all the time. I can't say that there's one particular one. I had a Liz Gilbert phase. Elizabeth Gilbert, definitely. Holly Ringland, I particularly loved her books, The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart and The Seven Skins of Esther Wilding. And I love her writing, particularly because they have themes around justice for women, justice for nature. They've got a lot of water themes. I'm a complete water baby. I swim in the river here down in Melbourne at the Yarra and in the ocean as well. And I actually used to live in Coogee and used to swim at Wiley's Baths every day. And a surf lifesaver. So I know there's a couple of Coogee people here. So I have a real passion for authors that are highlighting women's causes and highlighting the disconnection that humans and women have to nature and its impact on our well-being and so on. So yeah, stories around Mother Earth and women's rights. I'm studying Margaret Atwood at the moment. I've signed up to masterclass because I've written 6 kind of non-fiction books, and I'm just commencing writing the story of my grandmother Elsie, who was deserted by her husband, put in an asylum, committed to an asylum for 12 years, and then estranged from her 4 children. And our whole family is going on this incredible journey to unleash my grandmother's story and find out why her story was such a secret in our family. It was never revealed. No one ever talked about it. We had some vague idea that my grandmother had a mental illness, but it was never talked about. And I think for me, any woman author that is bringing to light the stories that have been hidden, obliterated, erased from history, I can't help but read. Recently listened to Wifedom, which is by Anna Funder, great Australian author, about George Orwell and the fact that his wife was, you know, really the woman behind his success. So yeah, I can't pick one author. Yeah. So, and I'm currently listening to the Dictionary of Lost Words. I can't believe that it's taken me this long to listen to that book too. So, you know, I feel like to be a great writer, you really need to be a great reader. And it's often a tussle between whether you read or write, you know.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I'm really proud to have one of your books. I'm holding your book.
Yeah, thank you.
Beautiful.
Lots of flowers on the cover.
Lots of flowers. Beautiful book. So let's go to you, Joe. Let's just mix it up a bit. So you okay to go next, Joe?
Sure. It's a really difficult question to answer. Just like Carolyn, I also have like phases, and I go and for every book that I'm working on, it always feels to me like a season. And so when I work on different books, it feels to me like I'm gravitating to different kinds of writing. So I've had I think the moment I knew that I really wanted to write was reading Toni Morrison's book Beloved. It felt to me like an absolute seminal, like awakening in my mind of what was possible, how it was possible to write. And she still remains one of my absolute all-time favorite writers. I'm a very big fan also of Etty Hillesum, which probably most people will never have heard of her, but she wrote diaries. She was a young Dutch woman who wrote these diaries in just before the Second World War. She ended up in Westerbork labor camp. She was a young Jewish woman. She died at the age of 27, but she left these astonishing diaries that have really, a bit like Carolyn was saying, she's one of these women that have kind of been forgotten. I think, I hope at some point I'll write something about her, because you sort of really, she's a little bit secreted, and unlike Viktor Frankl's like Man's Search for Meaning, I mean, her diaries to me are like in a category way above Viktor Frankl, and nobody knows about her. Especially in the times we're living in now, I feel like her understanding of human nature and how to be what she called the thinking heart of the barracks is so important. She never hated. She had such an astonishing sensibility. I love Maggie O'Farrell. I love Rachel Cusk. I love Rachel Carson. Similarly to Carolyn, also women who write about nature and the crossover with nature. I'm a big swimmer too, as you know. Sophie Strand is a young writer at the moment who is writing a lot about the natural world and illness, disability, and the way we're interconnected to everything. And I've literally just come back from Singapore, having done some training with Nora Bateson from the Bateson Institute. Again, somebody I think is not really as famous as she should be for the impact that her work should have in the world, but I'm hoping that it will get more impact. She does warm data training, which there's no time to talk about what that is now. But I also read a lot of poetry. I read poetry every single day. I read poetry before I write, and one of my favorite poets is Ada Limon, and I could go on, but let's let somebody else have a word.
Beautiful, thank you. Over to you, Rowena.
Thanks, Faith. Wow, I'm in big company. Look, my tastes are so wide and so varied. You know, I love a good shoot 'em up on TV, and so Patricia Cornwell, that kind of detective writing, and how she'll infuse recipes with cutting up bodies, and it's all there. J.K. Rowling, her imagination, never mind her politics, but her imagination is just stunning and wonderful. But look, I can't go past Maya Angelou. That woman just touches my heart. Yeah. And she's so famous for what she does. She's so famous for the way that she writes, the integrity and the grace and the ferocity, and the way she can touch into deep emotions. We all know that about her, but I find it's really quite astonishing when you think about where that woman's been. She started life as a cook and a waitress. She even did work as a sex worker and a dancer, and then she was an actor, and then finally she got to playwriting and editing, and she's played in musicals. She's just done so much, and for someone to come from that background, again, it really enthuses me that I can, and she speaks my language. She touches me, and that I'm just in awe of the fact that Nelson Mandela walked out of jail after being incarcerated for so long, and some of the first words he spoke were her poem, "I Still I Rise." It's just mind-boggling that this woman has brought so much to the world from her ordinary skin, and then I go over to someone like Anne Lamott, and I just love the way she speaks, that just common language, and it's not overly done, and yet it touches my heart every time I open a book. I can open a book of Anne's anywhere on any page, and it makes me feel better, and yeah, I just love those women. Michelle Obama, reading her memoir was really, once again, she's come from a background like mine, and look where she ended up. you know, and look at the way she carries herself and expresses herself. You know, they go low, we go high. You know, she's an incredible woman, and that brain of hers is just gigantic. So I love reading anything by her. That's basically it. You know, I just like reading.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so our next question seems really obvious, okay, but I was really wanting to hear each of your takes on it. So we know that many women are inspired to write their story later in life. So why do you think this is? Again, I know it's feel really obvious, but I really felt that we're going to get some gems out of all three of you. So, Carolyn, do you mind starting for us again?
So, wow, so many reasons. I mean, historically, we have been, you know, we've just talked about a whole lot of amazing women authors, but historically, history has been built on men's stories. And I have this belief that every single woman that writes a story somehow is going to make a dent in that man-made universe of men's stories. And so I think that's a really important part, to think that no matter how important or how unimportant we think our stories are, every time we write and tell a story, we are somehow making a little bit of a dent in our man-made universe. I think that's one big sort of universal reason. I think the personal reasons, writing is an incredibly healing experience. Writing our stories allows us to reflect on our past and consider what we might do differently in the future. I think one reason for writing our stories is to unearth the lessons from our life and perhaps to help us make different decisions. I think we write for change. Like, I can't write a book that doesn't have a purpose for personal change, but also for something beyond myself, for my reader, and for women generally. It's the most beautiful creative outlet that you can have. We don't need anyone else to participate. You know, it's a very private thing. You know, for me, I've been journaling since doing The Artist's Way in 2010. I've been journaling every single day. So you don't need to write to think that you've got to be have a blockbuster book on your hands. I think the idea of journaling, I think writing our stories to capture our family history. One of the women in my group has just taken it upon herself to write letters to her son, because she has realized that she may not get the opportunity to tell her son all of the stories that she might want to actually leave with her son about their connection and the things that are important to her. So I think knowing our why, our purpose for writing, is really worth digging into. You know, I talk about writing 200 reasons why to write your story. And they can be personal, they can be universal. You know, there's many reasons. And I think the big question is, the question before what you're writing is, why do I want to write it? What are the reasons behind? What's the purpose? And for every single woman, that purpose will be different.
Yeah, beautiful. And thank you for mentioning about The Artist's Way. So I'm not sure if any of you are aware of that, but in this week's newsletter that went out today, there's actually a free 12-week course that was offered to our community. Well, offered widely, but somebody brought it to our attention to share it with our community. So if you're curious about what The Artist's Way is, or you've done it and you want to do it again, check out this week's newsletter. There's a free link to actually do the 12-week. Okay, so thank you, Carolyn, for mentioning that, bringing that to my attention. Okay, Joe, let's go to Joe next to mix it up. Is that mixing it up or is it not? Actually, Rowena will be mixing it up. Let's go to Rowena next. Sorry, let's mix it up. Rowena, are you okay to go next?
Sure. Why are women inspired to tell their stories later in life? You know, I thought about this question, and it occurs to me there is an innate voice in every single person on this planet. You know, we all have that inner voice. What's that? The words in that song, from the moment I could talk, I was ordered to listen. You know, and we all have a need to express ourselves, but in particular with women, I've been watching a lot of media lately where it's exposed those awful habits that men had of shutting women down in you know, earlier years and in previous years, and it was a thing that we were, you know, to be seen and not heard. And today we traveled around Tasmania and we saw the women's factory where they were sent if they misbehaved in some way. And the words that really struck me were, if a woman, if any of the women in there managed to behave themselves, they were given the privilege of going to be servants in the big houses. And you know, I know that's diverting from writing a bit, but it goes to the point, you know, that we as women have had a lot to say over the years and not been afforded the opportunity to say it, nor have we had, you know, that audience of saying of you know, people who wanted to hear our words. And for those of us who really want to write our own stories, it's really important because we're bringing something of our souls. We're bringing something of our souls, and anything that we put out into the collective heals the collective, affects the collective. You know, when I do an emotional process of some sort, I'm not just doing it for me, I'm doing it for the whole universe. You know, and so when I write my words and I put those words out into the universe, especially if they're healing words or words that will give the opportunity for someone else to learn what I know, to glean some of my healing, to glean some of my spiritual journey, to, you know, then I'm actually contributing to the collective and to the whole. And the more we learn and grow and know, the more call there is to share that knowledge. Every time I learn and grow and become that little bit bigger, there's a call in me to share it. And I think women all over the world are feeling that in these days more than ever. In these days more than ever. And I think it's really important that we stick to it. It's kind of like a ticket to our belonging to the human collective. It's almost criminal not to share your stories, you know, because that's how people grow. That's how we grow. Yeah, I'll leave that there.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay, Jo.
Sure.
So I when I was thinking about who I teach, it started out with just women, and more it's become women in midlife. So I have a very clear target. I really only like to work with women in midlife, and I ran a workshop a few years ago called the Midlife Memoir, because you know, when people under the age of 40 write their memoir, I'm a bit like, really? You know, there's something about having earned your life. And for me in particular, women who, you know, up until a certain point in our lives, and for everybody, obviously it's different, but there comes a moment of what I call this turning point, and it's an awakening. And that awakening can happen if you have children, when they sort of, kids finish school, or they leave home, or a marriage ends, or your body lets you down for some reason, or you lose somebody that you love, or you realize that time is running out, you lose a parent, something happens. And it's often after women have kind of given their lives in sacrifice, as many of us end up doing, into these roles, which we think we've chosen, but somehow at midlife, you sort of turn around and you go, did I really choose all of that? Did I really choose to be a heterosexual, monogamous lawyer? Like, you know, you sort of start asking yourself these questions. Maybe I was a bit more bisexual than I thought. You know, maybe marriage wasn't actually the thing that I truly, really, really, really wanted. Did I actually want to have children? There are all these questions that sort of start to come up as a kind of what James Hollis calls a kind of like these hauntings that return to us. And in a story, in the story arc, it's kind of a moment of transformation where everything sort of, where you feel lost. And honestly, the moment where you feel lost is normally the beginning of a fantastic adventure. Probably the greatest adventure of your life. It's certainly a moment of transformation. So it's where we start alchemizing all of our experience into wisdom, and we start to make meaning. And Native Americans have this they have these 4 questions when somebody is sick. They ask, when last did you sing? When last did you dance? When last did you sit in silence? And when last did you tell your story? And so very often for healing, whether it's physical healing or emotional healing or spiritual healing, this thing about really claiming whatever your story is, whatever you, and there isn't a story. I mean, it's not like there is this thing that is your story that you have to claim. Claiming your story is something you make. It's not a given. It's something that you create. And it's this creative act, I think, that is just so healing. And what happens at midlife for many of us, menopausal, I mean, you and I have spoken a lot about this, Faith, but a person starts to make peace with the past. You give up on this magical and heroic thinking of your youth. You start to integrate shadow. You're able to hold paradox more easily. You kind of start to let go of blame and shame. You turn inwards to self-love instead of criticism. You know, your ego moves into much more of a soulfulness, and you start to think about, you know, what you're going to be leaving behind when you go, and you try to make meaning. And so for me, that's why I think this is a very crucial time in women's lives in terms of the writing moment.
You're muted.
Thank you. Now I'm doing it. Okay, so that takes us to our 4th question, which is, what inspires you most about telling your personal story, or do you shy away from doing so? Let's go to Rowena first for this one.
Thanks, Faith. I started writing my story for a very, very simple and plain reason, but it's become so much more than that. You know, I married an Australian man, and so I had these beautiful mocha-colored babies. They're just the most beautiful babies on the planet. And they all grew up, and they've all married white people. And so their babies are white. And I kept looking at these gorgeous, gorgeous 7 grandchildren that I have, and I thought, you know, they're going to go on, and they're going to, you know, they've already well and truly ensconced and integrated into this white society. I'm going to go, and one day, long down the track, somebody's going to throw a black baby, and nobody will know why. I need to write down this story so they'll all know why. But of course, it's become so much more than that. I wanted my children to really know my story and to really understand my story. They only know the me that I've shown them, you know, the me that is here, that I integrated myself into this Australian society. That's the only Rowena they know. They don't know the Rowena that came out of the LA ghettos. They don't know the Rowena that came through the race riots and, you know, fought my way into a university and, you know, all that stuff. They don't know any of that stuff. And so I just felt like it was important for them to understand it and to know it, and to, as much as they want to, if they want to integrate some of that personal knowledge into their lives, you know, not for any form of bitterness, but just to flesh out their own stories and understand who they are, over and above the little bit that they know from this country. So that was why. But you know, I think so much more than that. I just think people want to leave a bit of themselves. People want to leave, as you know, Joe said it. We finally move away from that that delusion that somehow we're going to get the flat bellies and the thin thighs back again. It's not coming back. Right. And we start to embrace who we are and where we are and where we're going. And, you know, I look upon it as a joyful journey. It's not, you know, woe to me, I'm going to the end. It's a joyful journey, and I want to write it down and share it, you know, all the ups and all the downs, you know, and come what may, that's what you're gonna get.
Thank you. Rowena, I'm crushed. I won't get back the flat belly. What are you doing?
It's not
I'm
coming back,
crushed.
honey.
Thank you.
Dress it
Very
up with
grounded.
sequins.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to Joe next.
Faith, we can't all have your flat belly.
Don't
Okay, so-
have flat
oh my gosh. I am so writing. Writing for me, the book that Rowena talked about, My When Hungry Eat. Honestly, throughout the writing of that book, which was about emigrating and trying to lose weight so that I wouldn't be fat and 40. Throughout the writing of that book, I kept thinking, who the hell is going to be interested in this book? Is this like the most like narcissistic, like my mother's going to be the only one who's going to read this book. And then I had these moments, you know, of like thinking, no one's going to be interested. Maybe this is everybody's story. Maybe this isn't. Maybe this is. And it's good to play around on that edge, because we have to be careful that the moments that we're sharing in our lives have to be bigger than this thing that just happened to me. And I teach people that there are these, you can't just write about what happened to you. You have to, what I say, cross the bridge between the personal and the universal. That's the meaning making part of writing. That's the part that you really have to, you know, that's the craft of writing. That's the stuff you practice. That's the stuff you learn. But everybody can do it. It's not something that, no, you know, you can be taught it, you can practice it, and we all have it. Because you know that when you've sat down with a friend at a kitchen table and you've discussed your lives, and that person reflects something back to you, whatever they're saying to you, you're like, oh yeah, that touches me. I get that. That helps me. I know what to do. And we've all had friends who've been able to do that. So every person has got the capacity to do it. And so for me, I've always written about the things that have been, I normally write about times in my life that I haven't understood, that I'm grappling with, that I'm grappling to make meaning from. So the thing I'm writing about now is a book about losing my mother during COVID to cancer. And I don't know what I'm saying in this book, but I know everybody's had a mother, everybody has a mother, and everybody, please God, in the course of life will lose a mother. And so I know I'm talking about grief, but it can't just be about grief. I've got to be saying something about grief. And that's the thing that I'm trying to work out in the writing. And that's what we do when we offer our lives. You're offering your life in service to something. The big question I always say to my writers is, what vision of life is your writing in service to? And that's the sort of thing that you've got to have a grip on. And at this time in our lives, at midlife, we kind of know who we are. We know what our values are. We know what our priorities are. We know where we stand. We know the things that we'll speak up for. Those are the kinds of things that you are unsure about when you're younger. But by the time we get to where we are now, we actually have a lot of life experience. We have suffered enough. And we're looking at the ends, you know, we're in that second half of our lives. We know we don't have forever. And so it's a beautiful liminal space of somebody who knows time is running out. I've got something to say, I've got something to offload, and this is what it is. Hear me roar.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, Carolyn, let's go straight to you.
I 100% concur with both Rowena and Joanne. Yeah, through all of my books, there's a little piece of me being woven, little short stories. I turned 60 last year, and I feel like I don't really have anything more to write about myself right now. I feel like through writing, you know, I've met a new partner the last couple of years after grief at the end of a relationship, and And so I feel like right now I'm in that space of not feeling the need to write my personal stories anymore. But my grandmother's story is calling me in a way that I've never been called to write my own stories before, because of course she is a part of me, but she's also a part of my cousins and my sisters and my father, who's her only living child. And so it is a journey that is far bigger than me. And I also know that trauma unprocessed from previous generations somehow gets carried through each generation until at some point a brave woman, usually a brave woman, steps forward and decides to uncover that ancestor's story. And so for me, it's soul work. I can't not write her story. I sleep, drink, I just like breathe it, sleep it, it's always there. It's in my journaling. It's just present. It's a story that can't not be written. And I think as we get to our age, that's how we want to be with our stories, is a story we can't not write. But the other thing that I would say is that there's a lot of you don't need to write a book to write your story. I think that there's a lot of this misconception that you have to go from zero to heroine. Hero or heroine is like, I've never written before, but oh yeah, I've got to write a 100,000 word novel and get it published. I think the biggest challenge for all of us is just getting started, and that our life story is actually just a series of little stories. So write 10 500-word stories. Don't go for the big, I'm probably shifting into the last question, is what's your advice? And for me, just write one story. And if it's only 500 words, but it's about a slice of our life. It's not about this idea that we've got to tell this story, chronological story of our life from the day we're born till the day we are, till now. So I think it's really, for me, personal stories matter, but I have never felt more called or more purpose-driven in writing my grandmother's story. I just feel like it's sort of, soul work that is calling me. And I think the more you write, the more you get called by the soul to keep writing, and there's nothing like doing the work of writing to becoming a writer. I mean, I know Rowena started this call by talking about the biggest thing she learnt was about believing that I'm a writer, and identity shift is a really important part of that. Is if you write a 500-word story, you're a writer. And I think that's the biggest thing for all of us, is to sort of step over the precipice and write something and share it. Because I think the other thing is that to write a story and not share it with someone else, even if it's one other person, that's when we become a writer too, when we're willing to find the courage to share our story with a reader, no matter who it is, whether it's your child or your parents or whatever. Funnily enough, I've always found that my son and my family have been the least interested in any of the books I've ever written. So, we think that, oh, what will our parents say, or what will my son say? But really, it's other women that I think are the ones that actually care and are interested. It's not usually your family. So we have this big worry that our family is going to judge us or say something about it, and they're getting over the fear of family reading our books and getting immersed in it is probably the biggest thing. But write your story, 500 words.
Beautiful. I love the idea of writing as healing, which is what I'm getting from everyone. And it reminds me of the quote, which is trauma not transformed, it's transferred. So I really love that. So we write to heal, not just ourselves, but future generations. So Love that. So our very final question. We were hoping to finish this part at now, so we can do some questions, but we're not going to have time to do that. But I think the final question is really important, because this is what I think most of us came here for, which is, what is one thing women should know if they want to write their story? So Carolyn, you already kind of told us, but let's go to Joe, Rowena, and then we'll finish with you again, Carolyn. Okay, so Joe?
I think everything that Carolyn said, you know, I think all of us doing this work come to these same things. There's nothing really new that I can add, other than to say that, you know, as she said, you don't have to, I always say, you don't have to share everything that you bear on the page. So she's right. You can share, you can bear yourself on the page, and then make a decision about whether that's something that you are going to share. There is expressive writing that has got a function, and then in order to take that and decide whether that's something for a reader, that's a totally different gesture. And there are different aspects of the writing. So you don't have to get so you know, caught in the idea that, oh, everything that I write, you know, most people say they won't write because they don't want to hurt people, they don't want to upset people in the family. And I'm like, they don't even have to know. Just write the story. Let's have a look at it, and let's see if that's something that, even once you've written something, sometimes you don't even need to share it. You just needed to put it down on the page. It's kind of like an offload. And then sometimes, as I say, once you've done that, what you find is there's actually a deeper story sitting underneath that anger, that rage, that guilt, that regret, that you know, that really needs to be explored. And sometimes you're just like throat clearing, or you're just clearing the path so that this deeper story can come up, because a lot of us are kind of like congested around the thing that we haven't been able to say, that we've been needing to say. So once you spit it out, sometimes there's a much deeper story that needs to come up from there. And your life is full of themes that overlap into other people's lives. Your life is significant, even if you think you haven't had a very big life or very important life. The work that women do in the way, and more as we can see in the culture that we're creating now, the skills that we have as women, all the things that have been so neglected and taken for granted, are really the skills that we need to protect the planet, to actually, you know, stop dehumanizing the other, to stay connected, to have trans-contextual conversations, to nurture the ecology of our communities. You know, all of this stuff is stuff that we can do by telling our stories. And then we find overlaps. Oh, there's where your story touches my story. Oh, guess what? We're all humans. Guess what? We're all part of this natural world. Oh dear, we better all just bloody take care of ourselves and each other. That's what we do when we add our story into the world. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Beautiful. And I just wanted to just push your beautiful book, Unbecoming. So I had the pleasure of writing one of the reviews in this book. Great book, and this is my signed copy. And this book was also one of our book clubs. So it was our very first book club, actually, in Silver Sirens. My God, Joe, very first book club. Tell us when you got the next one, okay? Okay, so let's go to Rowena. Rowena, I'm aware that you've got to go, so let's do you, and then.
Thank you. Thanks, Faith. Look, there's so many things I would say. It's already been said. Carolyn said it, Joanne said it. Just keep writing. The one thing that I know, that every single one of you, the minute you sit down to start writing your story, there is, pardon my French, but there's no other way to say it, there's a bitch of a woman who will jump into your head and tell you that what you're putting on that page is shit. And you know, she will not leave you alone. And what she's actually trying to do is she's trying to protect you. She's trying really hard to say, don't put this out there, because everybody in the whole wide world is going to laugh at you. So what you have to do is you have to take her and put her in the corner, reassure her it's all right, it's all good, and you just have to keep writing. And when you do that, there's something really magical that happens when you keep writing. And I mean, keep writing. Don't stop. Just, you know, set a clock, set a stopwatch, set something, and just keep writing. You know, and I have personal experience of this. When I started that little exercise, you know, coach said keep writing. I set the clock and I started writing. I had my what I was going to write. I had my plan. I started writing. And then I stopped for a second to think, and I go, oh, no, coach said keep writing. So I kept writing. What happens is you actually access a place that's not you. You access the magical place, that place where all the characters, all the storylines, all the plots, all the twists, everything lives up there in that place. But if you let the critic make you stop, if you let the critic make you stop your pen and you start to think, then you get in the way, and then you don't get to go to the magical place. I hope that makes sense, because to me it was the most profound discovery I have ever made in my entire life. And the other thing that I will say to you is, be prepared to be confronted and challenged, because those characters that come to you, the thoughts, the ideas, the plots, the storylines, when they come to you, even if you're writing your own story, when you get yourself out of the way, the truth has a way of confronting you in some really just amazing ways. You know, be prepared to see goodness where you were determined to make someone into a monster. You know, and be prepared to just see what you didn't know was there. And that's what will happen to you if you just keep writing, you know. And again, you know, I started out speaking about the human collective. That's where these stories come from, and that's where they go back. When you write them, they go back and they heal. They heal in a way that no other word can do. Yeah. Anyway, I will leave that there. And I wish you all wonderful, wonderful journeys, not success, just journeys with your writing.
Thank you. I know you've got to sneak out, so you just go whenever you need to, and we'll, if any of the women want to say anything to Arena or send her a message, please come through me and I'll pass it on to her. Okay, so let's finish with Caroline. Thank you. Lucky last.
I just wanted to say that as much as writing is a solo journey, what makes it so beautiful is that it's also a collaboration. And it's a collaboration between you and the characters that form your story, but it's also a physical collaboration. I thoroughly recommend joining a community, joining a course like Joanne's or the one I offer, or Rowena, finding your tribe to write with and share your stories with. I think that it can be extremely isolating writing your stories, and you can get stuck in your own way. I think, as Rowena said, you can just get stuck. And what you want to do is to get unstuck and have some fun with it and connect with other women, hear other women's stories. Yeah, whether it's doing a course, whether it's starting your own writers group, whether it's finding one other buddy. And then also think of the characters as your imaginary collaborators, if they were all around a table and coming in and being a part of it. So yeah, as much as writing's a solo journey, seek companionship, collaboration, and community to help sort of push you through and keep you going.
Beautiful, really great guidance from all three of you. So we're going to just finish off, because the time's nearly up. We're just going to finish off by both Caroline and Jo have some special offer. If you want to work with these two beautiful women, very talented women, both have special offer. Let me go to you, Caroline, first. And these offers are going to be in the follow-up, together with your follow-up video, but I just want you to tell the women here now. Okay, so you go first, Caroline.
Okay, thank you, Faith. So I run a 12-week course called Brave Women Writers Group. It's based on the book, my last book, called Brave Women Write. And yeah, it's a 12-week course where people define their project and determine their writing goals, get some mentoring from me, but also connect with other women. So it doesn't matter what you're writing. It's a 12-week support group. I'll send the details to Faith. The next circle kicks off in May. It's done virtually, and there are a couple of days where we get together one at our farm in Red Hill in the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria, and one in Clifton Hill. I live between two hills on a farm and in the city. I'm very, very fortunate. So, yeah. So anyway, I'll send you the information. Thanks, Faith, for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you. Okay, Joe, over to you.
So I'm running a writing retreat. I run one writing retreat every year. It's in Mystery Bay in August for 10 women, and I still have a few places left. And that's really kind of like the incubator for the women that I sort of try to make sure that these women are going to stay on a course to try and get themselves finished and over the line. I'm running a rewriting retreat in June for people who've done either my online courses or any of my writing retreats, or who have got some kind of first draft. And I've got my literary agent coming to make an appearance at that writing retreat as well, because I'm trying to get people who've worked with me into publication one way or the other. So those are the two things. And I've got online writing courses and stuff, and I do one-on-one mentoring. But the main one is really, I guess, Olga, who's here, did my course in Mystery Bay and in last year in August. And so it's sort of like it's like the gateway into people that I have a relationship with, and that I then, because I have relationships with publishers and literary agents, and I try to get people across the line eventually when their books are ready.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So all of that information will be in the follow-up email with the recording that goes out tomorrow. So on a final, just thank you to Joe, to Carolyn, and to Rowena. Thank you so much.